Hey fellow garden gnomes, welcome back to my channel. This is Brittany. Since moving to New Brunswick in mid-June, I have had to leave my garden behind, but my parents have been taking care of it for me and have been nice enough to send me pictures and talk to me on the phone for hours about my garden. Not quite hours, but a long time definitely. And recently they were able to get some video. My mom shot a video tour of the garden a few weeks ago, and she also included a small potato harvest. And so I was able to get a hold of the footage. I put some narration into it for you guys, and now I'm going to show it to you. So here you go. So here we have my apple tree that I planted this spring. There isn't a ton of foliage, and so I'm kind of disappointed, but at the same time, this is my first time planting dwarf fruit trees, so I don't really know what to expect. Here is my dwarf cherry tree. It's definitely looking nice. It's a 2-year-old tree, whereas the apple tree was just a 1-year-old whip. I'm really happy with the flowers at the base too. That purple flower is a lupin right there. And this is my dwarf plum, which again, I'm happy with the foliage and I can't wait to see what happens next year. So right here, there's a sweet potato vine. This is my front garden. And there's some pumpkin vines with some nasturtiums. The pumpkins really took over this year. I kind of threw, I think, 4 pumpkin plants into a corner, not really expecting much. There's a nice pumpkin. And they took over and went crazy. So I'm definitely going to reduce the amount of pumpkin plants I have next year, probably 1 or 2, because I also want a melon plant or 2. You'll see that as we go along too, that a lot of the pumpkin leaves are speckled with white. That's some powdery mildew that my parents are working at controlling. This is a trellis, and I have a tomato plant here. I love these tomatoes. They're called Blue Beauty, and I got them at Baker Creek Seeds. Although I believe they're available in other places too. But you see they turn purpley on the shoulders, but they stay green and then eventually red on the bottoms. So there's more trellises, tons of pumpkins. There's a nice green pumpkin there. That actually is from a pumpkin vine that decided to climb my tomato cage. Lots of nice pumpkin flowers. I actually forwarded a recipe to my parents using stuffed pumpkin flowers, because at this point in the season, I don't think we need any male flowers that might show up. My nasturtiums have done really nicely. You can actually eat nasturtium leaves. They're very peppery, so I would use them sparingly. Some nice zinnias interspersed. There's 2 awesome pumpkins. Super happy. We're gonna have lots of jack-o'-lanterns at my parents' place. In the background, you can see different trellises with zucchini plants. Oh, those blue flowers are my anise hyssop, which is great for attracting bees. There's another pumpkin and some broccoli, flowering broccoli. You can see basil on the right. I'm really, really happy with this. This is probably the best garden I've had so far. As we go a little closer, you can see a bee enjoying one of the broccoli flowers. I believe after this video was taken, my parents harvested that broccoli. You can still eat it when it's flowered. That's perfectly fine. Although you might want to leave it for the bees. So my beets are looking really good. At least on top, they've still got a little bit of growing to do under the ground. And there's a heavy-duty tomato cage, and that I believe is one of my yellow. I believe it's yellow cherry tomato. Really nice bunches there. Can't wait to see them when more end up turning color. There are my potato bags. In previous videos, I've mentioned that I prefer having potatoes in bags now, because then I can just dump them rather than digging and risking spearing my potatoes. So I think my mom is going to try and harvest some of these potatoes, because you can see that the plants are not looking very good, and that's not actually because of any disease or anything, but simply because the potatoes are mature and ready to be harvested. I'm really happy with the quality of that soil. What I did is I took a mix of soil and mushroom compost, and then I mixed it with some coconut coir and a little bit of vermiculite. I tried for about 2/3 of the soil mushroom compost mix and a third of coconut coir and vermiculite. Those are some nice potatoes. I believe this is the bin that I had 2 red potato varieties in. And I think later on in this video, Mom's gonna show us a close-up of that label. Nice potatoes. Now, in past videos, I've mentioned how I've thought about fertilizing my potatoes halfway through the season. And this year I just ended up not doing that, partly because I moved not too long after planting potatoes because I got a job in New Brunswick, but also because since we were adding more of this mushroom compost and soil and coconut coir mix, basically building it up so that they're the same way that you would hill potatoes in the field. I figured that was adding more nutrition, so I didn't see the need necessarily for adding fertilizer, but I'm definitely thinking next year I would like to add a bit of an organic fertilizer just halfway through the season, because I'm still a little bummed at this harvest. It's better, it's nice, but it's definitely not as good as I am hoping to get. Oh, of course, I'm also hopeful that some of my other potato bins that have yet to be dumped might have a little bit of a better result. Oh, I love looking at that soil though. It looks really good, and I definitely want to do that again. You see, you really want to have that kind of loose, crumbly soil with potatoes so that the potatoes can expand into it easily. So in this video, my mom didn't completely dump the bin because she was holding the camera with one hand, but afterwards they did dump it and were able to save the soil on a tarp, which they then used to return all of that nice soil back to my garden, but it also allowed them to find a few more potatoes. But she's still finding some good little potatoes there. And I believe she told me when they ate them and said that they were really good. Actually, not too long after this video was taken, they did I believe a pork chop dinner with potatoes and broccoli. Potatoes and broccoli being from my garden. And then they cut up some of the Blue Beauty tomatoes and put them on the pork chops and said they were really good. So here is one of the labels, red gold. So there were 2 varieties in there. One was red gold, one was Roco. So here are some carrots. They are quite, as you can see, they are quite crowded. So my parents told me that they were probably going to be thinning them out soon. And since there are some tiny carrots, they will be able to eat some of those thinnings, which is always nice. Those are some of the weird tomatoes. Even though it looks pretty crazy, it's kind of nice to have all the tomatoes jumbled together because you're much less likely to have squirrels come in and steal tomatoes, which has happened in past years. Here are some of my cucumber vines, lots of good looking cucumbers, lots of tiny developing little cucumbers. There's an enterprising vine trying to get outside the confines of the garden. Something nibbled on that cucumber. And here we're back at the back of my garden. You can see the street in the background and cars going by. There's a corn. So I've sort of experimented with corn. This, I believe, is baby corn, which is why it looks so small. So I've never grown it before, so I'm not actually sure when it will need to be harvested, but it'll be interesting to see. There's another corn. Unfortunately, I believe we did have a visitor that came by and knocked a whole bunch of plants over. Here's some peas. They're pretty much done. Peas, usually are done earlier in the summer. Although my mom, I think, is pulling off one that they must have missed. And then it looks also like there's some tomatoes there. I actually took off the sound from this video just because there was a lot of focusing from the camera and just not very pleasant. So there's my zucchini that I believe is going to be entered into the carp fair. My mom's hand, which she has really long fingers, and her hand is maybe half of that zucchini, so that's pretty cool. Some more Blue Beauty tomatoes. We've definitely had way more tomatoes this year than we've ever had before. Again, like I said, having them closer together means that squirrels are less likely to get them, which is awesome. There's another corn that's unfortunately been knocked over. There's some beans. So that was the state of my garden as of a couple weeks ago. I'm really happy with how it's turning out. It is the most productive garden I've had yet. I'm just sorry I wasn't able to experience in person, but what can you do? C'est la vie. That big, huge zucchini that you saw there, that's going to be entered into the carp fair, a local agricultural fair, at the end of September. So I'm really interested to see how that turns out. If you guys are interested in seeing more from my garden, I highly encourage you to check out my Facebook page at Brittany Dane Garden. I'll put it down in the description. And there I have posted an album of a bunch of photos that my parents have sent to me over the last month or so of different things in the garden. I definitely hope to be able to give you guys more content about my garden. In mid-October, I will be at home for Thanksgiving. To you Americans, that's Canadian Thanksgiving. We have it in October, not November. But I'll be there and I'll be probably cleaning up the garden. I'll be doing some harvesting. Definitely my sweet potatoes, if they haven't come out by then, will be coming out. My sunchokes will be coming out. And probably I'll be doing a last kind of big harvest in addition to cleaning up my gardens. So I'm really looking forward to shooting that for you guys, and I hope you guys are looking forward to seeing it. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're interested in seeing more, please hit that subscribe button. And until next time, stay wildly green.